Hall with the DoorGrow Show, and I'm hanging out here with James Alderson of OnSight Pros. How you doing today, James?
Good, Jason. Thanks.
Glad we were able to get together. So James, we're going to be talking today about inspections, right?
Yes, sir.
And when it comes to inspections, this is something that I think a lot of property managers claim that they do, but maybe really aren't actually doing them. I think that some of the bigger companies maybe, but I think there's a lot of people that just really aren't maybe doing as many inspections as they should. They know that they should be, and the owner maybe has peace of mind, but maybe you could weigh in on that. And I'd love to hear about how you got started in OnSight Pros. So,
Well, first off, you make a good point because I was one of those that claimed I was doing them. I am a property manager as well and started this business basically as an offshoot of my need. So the way it all started, I guess, was number one, I didn't have time to do them, didn't want to do them. My time was better spent doing something else, i.e., building my business, as opposed to doing a $100 inspection, so to speak, out there for an hour and a half, 2.5 or 3 hours, whatever it took to do them. So I hired some guys to do mine, and it became a business as a result of that because some others had the same need. Wasn't in the market to open another business, didn't want another business, didn't need another job, so to speak. But I saw the need, and so as a result of it, we do move in, move out, periodic, initial inspections, and all those are different types that we perform in the field. I've trained the initial guys, what I expected as a property manager, what I felt like the tenant needed to see for the protection of the security deposit for my owner. And as a result of that, my trainers, the ones that I trained, are now training others, and we're unbeknownst to me and unwanting, if you will, have taken this thing, and this is an ambiguous term, but taking it nationwide. We're now in 15 cities across the United States in about 8 states currently, and expanding as fast as we can now because the need for property managers is prevalent.
yeah, so I think this is a challenge right now. Is there's probably a lot of people that would love to offload their inspections, and so, but they can't. There's nobody available that's doing this, and you're growing as fast as you can into markets where it makes sense financially. And so, how many doors do you need in a market in order to go into a new market? Maybe we can put some
Good question.
out there for us.
Yeah, great
business for you.
Right. Great question. We need about 800 to 1,000 doors. And honestly, when I first started, I had 100 doors and I didn't know what I was doing. So I hired some guys, trying to do it part time. So I went through 36 inspectors or technicians, if you will. We use the term inspectors very openly, but it's not a full-blown inspection as you would do on a sale of a property, but
Right.
But what we do as property managers. But yeah, I went through about 36 inspectors, technicians early on, just because I didn't have enough to sustain them, enough business there. So yeah, if we could get, and we've kind of grown our business through the NARPM chapters, quite frankly, just because there's a conglomerate of property managers there that can put 800 to 1,000 doors together for us to grow. So that's about the number.
All right. So anyone that's listening to this later, if OnSight Pros is not yet in your market, maybe you can get together with a couple of your buddies at NARPM, and if you can create 800 to 1,000 doors, that will James will make some magic happen in your market. Right? Is that fair enough?
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I can tell you what cities we're in. If that's okay. Okay, we are actually in Pennsylvania, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We're in Baltimore, Maryland, and I'll try to go down the East Coast. We're in Virginia Beach, getting ready to open up Northern Virginia, Richmond area. and in Atlanta, Georgia, trying to open up in North and South Carolina. Not quite there yet, but Florida, we're in Tampa, Jacksonville, Orlando, Panama City, and Lakeland, and all around the general Tampa. There's a highway, a main highway that goes from, and I can't think of a name. I think it's Highway 4 that goes from Tampa to all the way to Jacksonville. So we're on that main bypass or thoroughfare across the state of Florida. We're in all the major cities in Texas: San Antonio, Houston, Austin, Fort Worth, and Dallas, and looking at some others in Texas and on a smaller scale. And then we're in Boulder, Colorado, and one other is Phoenix, Arizona. And actually going into November, we're speaking at the NARPM event, state chapter meeting in November. So because we've had a lot of interest in Salt Lake City area, so that's kind of the gamut. And like I said, growing as fast as we can get to where you guys need us.
Okay, great. So hopefully this will get you some new business in some markets. So I think there's serious advantages for the smaller property manager that just doesn't have the staff or the resources to really do those inspections. These guys that are or less, which are probably like the vast majority of most property managers out there. And there's probably also a lot that are just not involved with NARPM yet. A lot of these smaller ones. And so yeah, they could really use it. All right, cool. So if you got one property manager that had 1,000 doors, is that still stable and safe for you? Your game.
We're in.
Contract, right?
Yeah, if they'll commit to us, obviously when I say commit to us, we need a commitment from them as much as we're going to commit back to them. Because of the investment that it takes to get a market started. So, if somebody would commit to doing, periodic inspections or move in, move outs, or both, we're all in, and we'll hire the right guy. That's been a challenge in some markets to find the right person. But we pay them well, and we're not cheap, but we do a great job. And, in most markets, our pricing is, $99 for a periodic inspection, $119 for a move in, move out. The reason for the difference, we're not as invasive when a tenant isn't on the property, for a periodic, but we're extremely invasive on a move out or move out, a move in or move out. Obviously it's vacant, and we want to take every square foot of the property. Photos, and you're going to get a report of about 150 to 200 photos that's about 75 pages, which is a pretty good documentation for you to be able to hold back some of the security deposit if you need to, or give it all back. We all try to give it all back. I haven't met a property manager yet that doesn't want to give back the security deposit 100%. And if the home is rent ready, I'm ready to write the check. But typically 99% of the time it's not. So it gives us good documentation to show the tenant this is the reason we're keeping $500,000, whatever, $500 to $1,000, not $500,000 of the security deposit. And it's just a great documentation. And one of the things that we value in our company is the same product that comes out of San Antonio is the same product you're going to get in Atlanta, Georgia, or vice versa. One of my big pet peeves was to make sure that we had good QC in place to make sure our guys were doing the right job, the right thing every time.
Right. QC being quality control.
Correct.
All right. So cool. So why is this better than what property managers having it in-house and doing it themselves?
That's a great question. Number one, staffing and everything, in my opinion, in life that we do is the cost of money. What how much time does it take to do this? And I'm one of those that doesn't even mow my own yard. because my time is valued at X, and I can get my yard mowed for less than X, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
So the value is there as far as a time thing, but the other part of that is, and I've lost my train here. Somebody walked into my office, but anyway, what we just want to make sure that you get good quality. Tell me the question again. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So we were talking about why is this better? Because most property managers are either doing it on their own right now. So the question is, like, why is this better? Why should somebody go with OnSight Pros instead of just figuring this out on their own? So you mentioned time. Time is a good factor. They may not have, I would imagine in some instances, they don't have the staff or the resources or the time to do it themselves because they're smaller. But I think also, I would imagine if this is all you guys do, and you guys have done this over and over and over again, your process, your systems, everything involved in your inspections are the best. That's just what happens when you are doing something over and over and over again. Right. And if that's your sole focus, you're going to be far better at that. And so what sort of issues or problems or things are you seeing when people come on board? They're like, oh my gosh, this is so different. I'm curious about the difference between what they were doing and what they're noticing once they come on board.
Yeah, great question. I'm sorry for the distraction there. But what we do have had some property managers contact us and say, man, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And one particular guy said, how fast will you be in Jacksonville? Well, Jacksonville wasn't even on our radar. And I said, why do you ask that? And he took it upon himself to say, okay, I'm going to be your guy. He was a property manager, did sales as well. And I said, why the urgency in Jacksonville? He said, because I got a lawsuit from an attorney just recently, and they sued me for $3,000 and over a security deposit dispute. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, I took my documentation to an attorney, and he said, I showed him my good quality move-in inspection that I personally had done, and my move-out inspection that I personally had done. And he said he didn't have staff either, but this attorney said, you got great documentation, but you're going to lose. And he said, well, wait, what do you mean? They're suing me for $3,000, and I'm going to lose over a $600 dispute, by the way. And he said, yeah, you're going to lose. And so he said, I didn't take his word for it. I took it to another attorney, and he told me the same thing. He said, you've got great documentation, but you're going to lose this case. And he said, why do you say that? And he said, because they're not suing you because of the $600 that you're keeping. They're suing you because they're saying that you had a biased opinion about the inspection that you did on that property. You have a personal vested interest in the owner's property, and you did it. So thus the reason for him needing, quote unquote, a third party to come in and do an inspection for him. So he now uses us, and he now is actually our market city manager in Jacksonville, Mario Gonzalez, and does a fabulous job for us, for a lot of property managers out there. But you said it right.
That's not something that I would even consider. Exactly. Property managers think they're safe just because they did the inspection. They've got video. They've got photos. They're like, I'm protected because I can show that this was the condition of the property. And that's their thought process.
Right.
So, but they're biased. That's what the lawyers.
Well, that's what the attorney said, and that's what the suit was. And see, we're seeing this more and more in the property management industry. The tenants are getting more and more educated with the internet, with friends and what have you, about what their rights are, and how to bypass things that come up like that. I thought that was an interesting case too. But he did settle out of court for, I think he said, about $1,000.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And the deposit was $600.
Exactly.
So related to that, is there any sort of warranty or insurance or protection in place regarding these inspections? Like, are these somehow backed up, or
you mean as far as our
our company?
You know, I can't tell you that we're going to go to. We will go to court with you if you need to. But what I've found, and I've never had to go to court over a security deposit dispute. God forbid, and cross my fingers and knock on wood, all those things. But I've just not had to do that, because when I do get a dispute now, I send the tenant my move-in inspection and all the issues that are on the report, or excuse me, all that are pointed out on the report, come up in a summary on our report right at the top of the page. So it's on the first 1 or 2 pages if there's any issues that we need to point out. So all of those come up on the front 2 pages. So I'll send them the first 2 pages of my move in. I'll send them the first 2 pages of my move out, and let them decide, you know, do you really want to go to court, or do you really want to send me, you know, what you don't have or did have or should have had, as far as documentation when you moved in, or and the way it looks. It usually just goes away as a result of me sending them documentation that I have.
Yeah, I imagine what you have looks pretty good. And then I think also there's just a power and a leverage by having a third-party independent company doing the inspections. Mm-hmm. Now, you're obviously hired on behalf of the property manager, so you are serving their interests to a certain degree, but there is that one level removed of being an independent company doing your job according to your own specifications that you do all over the nation, separate, but following the same process.
Right. Every time. Yeah.
So there's this fairness or this uniformity, I think, that also provides this level of protection for the property manager. Cool. So what else might I be missing? What, like, when you guys are selling this to property managers, I want to get these ideas out of you. Like, how are you convincing people to do this instead of them doing it on their own?
That's okay. What I would like to point out too, Jason, is there are several types of inspections that we need to really think about doing if we're not doing them. For example, there are some companies, and I do this myself, when I take on a property, I want to know, first off, is it a property that I want to take on? Is it a property that's up to property code according to my state, you know, laws and codes and what have you? And it may or may not fit my portfolio. And so as a result of that, I always do an initial inspection. I send out my guys to do the initial inspection just to make sure that it's up to code, and if it's a property that I want to take, may or may not be one. And I had a property manager tell me one time, and you want to make sure there's a property there or there's a house there. We took on a property, and 2 weeks later went out and put a sign and a lockbox on the house, and found out that we were on the news 2 weeks prior because it had burned down. So we need to make sure that there's even a property, you know, a house there. We do initials, and then we do periodic inspections with the tenant. We set up an inspection with the tenant. To just like any other vendor, they have to be home. We're not going to go into the property without access to the property. And one of the main reasons we do that is because I don't want the $10,000 wedding ring that was on the dining room table is now missing, and you're the only one that's been in the house, Mr. Technician. And I don't want that kind of liability, obviously. So we will set up an appointment with the tenant, and we get and we also send back to the property manager. Sometimes tenants stonewall us. You know, they don't want you. They don't want us. We're not their friends, so to speak. So because we're going to come in and check the smoke alarms, the air conditioner filter, and the trampoline in the backyard, and all those things that they're not complying with, and what have you. Even the grow house, so to speak. We've had that in San Antonio. Actually, a tenant had lived in the property for 2 years, and the property manager said, this is the reason we're going to start using OnSight Pros, because they had a grow house and didn't even know it. For 2 years, the guy never was late on his rent, always paid cash or a money order, sent it to the office, and never had a maintenance issue, you know. So it's legal, obviously, in some states now, but it never has been in Texas.
Yeah, I think the whole state of Colorado is turning into grow houses. I don't know if there's going to be any rentals available anymore.
Right. Yep.
So the other benefit, then, what you're pointing out is you guys are willing to go in and be the bad guy. You're willing to be the bad guy when it comes to inspections, and the property manager, that company is not the bad guy then in that situation. OnSight Pros, this company we're contracted with, they're going to come out and do the inspection, so it's fair, it's independent, and they're going to communicate with you and get the time set up and do all this. And the property manager, if they're upset about the inspector or the inspection or any of this stuff happening and they don't want people in there, the property management company is, again, one level removed from that, and you can stay the good guy. Oh yeah, sorry, you had a tough time with OnSight Pros.
Yep, we're just reporting what is. Interesting that you say it like that too, because I hired a property manager about 3 years ago, and he worked for me a couple of years. And I told him, I said, I really can't afford to pay you a lot of money, but I can give you can make some extra money if you'll do some inspections for OnSight Pros. And he said, yeah, I used to work for another property management company. I did that all the time. And so I'll do that. So he would come to work, in his regular property management attire. And then whenever I had inspections for him to do, he'd put on his OnSight Pro shirt and he'd go out and do inspection. And he came to me one time and he said, man, this is interesting. And I said, what do you mean? He said, James, when I went in as a property manager to inspect a property on a periodic inspection, he said the tenant would lambaste me with all kinds of stuff that I either had not done as a property manager, or, pointing out this and pointing out that. And that 45-minute to an hour inspection turned into 2.5 hours because they were just following me around, pointing out everything they didn't want to get. They wanted to point out to me as a property manager. OnSight Pros, when I put that shirt on and go in as a third party, he said totally different. He said the tenant would say, here's the house, go in, make yourself at home, whatever. And they stayed in the kitchen, stayed in the bedroom, whatever, and let him do his job. And he was in and out of a house in 45 minutes to an hour. So it's a different perception from the tenant standpoint as well.
Yeah, that's huge. I'm renting currently, and so the perception of a tenant is if the property manager's there, you get to point out problems. Like you get to say, hey, you guys need to fix this. You guys need to fix the sprinkler system because the lawn in the back is like a mud soup, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like it's your job to fix this. But if an inspector comes in, that there's a total different, perception and you have a totally different perspective because their job is to come find problems.
Exactly.
And so it's just like they're coming in to look for problems, not that, maybe that the property manager should be aware of and be involved in, but they're also looking to find the problems that maybe the tenants created or caused.
Right. You said something a little earlier, and I wanted to point it out. One of my goals in property management was to manage as many doors as I could possibly manage and live wherever I want to live. So, and I couldn't do that as long as I was having to do inspections or having to go to the property. I had to live in close proximity to the houses that I manage. And OnSight Pros kind of took that away. They obviously took the inspection part of the property management away from me. So my wife and I live at Canyon Lake, and most of our door, which is about 45 minutes to just the outskirts of San Antonio. We manage houses on the south side of San Antonio, on the east side, west side, New Braunfels, and even Seguin. But because I don't have to go to the property now, so it's a pretty different deal. And we become managers or owners, business owners, if you will, as opposed to day-to-day operational stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned a few things that I'm a big proponent of. One, you need to make sure that you're screening the types of properties that you take on. That's how you escape this concept that I've talked about several times to my listeners called the cycle of suck, in which if you take on bad properties, or bad owners, you're going to have bad properties, and you're going to have bad tenants, you're going to get bad reviews, and you're going to attract more bad clients, right? And so to escape that, you have to have a screening process at each step, but usually we're only screening tenants. We're not screening owners. We're not screening properties. Some are. Everyone screens tenants, usually somewhat. And then you need a system in which you are somehow screening or filtering or getting positive reviews, right?
Sure.
We always push our Gather Kudos service for that. Yeah. But yeah, so you need so this can help with that, with sort of that filtration and eliminating the bad doors that get you caught in what I call property management hell. And then it's going to collapse time, because if you're paying staff to go out and do this and you think, well, my staff might be cheaper, but it's taking a lot longer. There's a lot more problems being brought up. They're saying, well, I told this property manager when they came for that inspection about this, and maintenance requests might be falling through the cracks. There might be, it's he said, she said. That can get really messy. And so I think it's going to collapse time. And then the last point you brought up is really valid for entrepreneurs. And so the people listening to the show are property management entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are the weird birds that want freedom more than safety and certainty. We do the crazy stuff. We take the risks. We go out and hustle. We work hard, and we're willing to do all the crazy stuff because we want more freedom, and we value that more than just safety and certainty. People that want safety and certainty, they work for us, right?
Right.
They want jobs. They want a job. And some people will complain about their boss left and right. And we look at them like, you're nuts. Why would you live in a situation you're not happy in? But they look at us like we're crazy. And we're talking about figuring out how to pay staff. And we're talking about how to keep the business going, and the pressure and the noise. And they're looking at us, why don't you just go get a job? Right. So, but this can help facilitate this vision of having a company that can run without you having to be physically present, micromanaging your team and making stuff work. You can have them doing the inspections, the move-ins, the move-outs, all the stuff that a property manager might need to travel to each property normally. You guys can take that off their plate.
Right, and we don't take the job away from the property manager, so to speak, because some entrepreneurs, some business owners have property managers that work for them, right. and that's great, and they still need those, but they may be able to manage more doors, so they may be able to reduce their staff some just because they don't have to go do the inspection. I will tell you, one of the things that I know is an issue out there is owners expect us to pay for them. Owners expect us and I'm speaking very general terms here. Okay, most owners, for the fee that they pay, we charge them, or they pay us, expect us to do those inspections. And I will tell you this: that property managers across the United States and through the NARPM circles have shared with us ways to get reimbursed for them. And I could go over some of those if you guys are interested, but and send you an email. I actually have in my lease today that when a tenant moves into my house is rent ready for you, Mr. Tenant, today. I expect it to be rent ready for me when you move out. If it's not, and if those two don't match up and I have to do your job, it's going to cost you. So that's one of the ways we charge our tenants for what I call a coordination fee, because I had to do what they were supposed to do and they didn't do it. So that's one way. And then I also have implemented an admin fee in my property management business, just mainly because it just makes sense. And if you ever rented an apartment complex or from an apartment complex, from day one, forever and ever, amen, way back when they started that admin fee, and I paid as little as $20.
Explain what an admin fee is for. Like how would you explain that?
Basically, it's for all the administrative stuff to get them in the house. That's what I figured, and part of that is an inspection for that property. So I've seen it as little as $25. I've seen it as much as $200. And if tenant wants the house, they don't have a problem paying for it. Never had any pushback on it. I talked to one property management company in Austin recently that said it's the same thing. He said, I implemented it the first year, and his was $100 and somebody else was $200. I'm not telling you what fee to charge, but he said, I've had no pushback whatsoever. So he uses it to get reimbursed for his inspection. Now, I don't call it an inspection fee to begin with, because if you change an admin fee to an inspection fee, then the tenant then becomes the owner of the inspection, if that makes sense. So, right. So use the admin fee and don't use the quote unquote inspection fee. The other one, the periodic inspection, I've never gotten any pushback from an owner that when I told him what I was going to do 6 months into the lease, by doing a periodic inspection. Periodic inspection, my guys go in and they check smoke alarms, dates on smoke alarms to make sure my owner is not at risk. That's their job as property managers, is to mitigate risk. It's not, and I consider it now more money management than property management, if that makes sense, because we manage their money. We're not the property doers. We call the people that do everything, and neither am I. Not only am I not a plumber, I'm not an electrician, I'm not an AC guy, I'm not an inspector. I mean, I know what needs to be done now as a result of it. But you know, if you've got property managers that are females, there are some houses that you manage, you don't want to send a female out to that property, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay,
so
that danger factor then too.
Exactly. Right.
Okay, so another benefit. So, so basically, what you were just saying is that your inspections, you had said before, they're not cheap, they're worth the money, they're awesome, but the property manager doesn't have to pay for them.
Exactly.
Right?
That's right. That's what I wanted from the get-go, Jason, was I wanted them off my plate, but I didn't want them to affect my bottom line. You know, so that's where that kind of stemmed from.
Awesome. So you, this is part of maybe your onboarding process. You have conversations with these property managers, and you help them figure out how to maybe turn this into a zero cost, you know, lots of benefit situation.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm starting to see why people will want you in their market. So, okay. So this sounds really awesome. So is there anything else that people need to know about OnSight Pros?
Man, how to contact me. Send me an email or go to our website, onsightpros.com. And OnSight is spelled a little differently. It's OnSight because we're the I's. Onsightpros.com. And you can actually see one of our sample reports there. You can contact us there. My personal email is jamesalderson@me.com, M-E, first and last name all together, no dots, no dashes. And then feel free to contact me anytime. Love to talk to you.
Yeah, and everybody make sure you're inside the DoorGrow Club Facebook group. We've got, at the time of this recording, 600 people in the group. It's only been around for a few months. The engagement is insane. We've had between 8,000 to 9,000 interactions in the last 28 days, which is just ridiculous. I've never seen a Facebook group with this much involvement, which tells me you property management entrepreneurs need people to talk to. Let me tell you, like you guys are excited to communicate and connect with each other. And so make sure you guys get in there. And if you guys are interested in getting OnSight Pros in your market, they're not there, this is a great place where you guys can start connecting and chiming in. And if we can get enough doors together in your market, OnSight Pros will create a location or get set up in your market. They've got processes to do that. So let's get you guys communicating, and I think in the future here, James, I think you're gonna have some rapid expansion. Think you can handle it?
We're ready for it. It does take time and money, obviously, so you guys be patient with us, but we want it to happen. We want to make the industry better, and I think OnSight Pros has been a big step in that direction, and in what we do. You know, people go to college and get degrees for a lot of different things, and one of them is not property management. None of us probably went to school to become property managers, but it's a valid business, and it needs to be on the ticket for the coming years. It's been around forever, or for a long time anyway, and we want to see it continue and continue to get better.
Well, I don't think there's any property managers that think inspections are their dream in life or are super fun. So I would imagine there's many that would be happy to offload this from their plate. And my rule of thumb for entrepreneurs is you should be in your area of genius, whatever that is, whatever you just love, what makes you feel alive. You should be following your bliss. And I doubt inspections is high on the list for any entrepreneur out there. And so offload this, get this taken care of. And I've heard nothing but positive feedback about OnSight Pros. And so we'll make sure we get you on our little list inside the DoorGrow Club of really cool vendors. And and we'll let you in there as well. And I think I see good things for you guys moving forward. So,
Great.
Cool, James. Appreciate you coming out on the show.
Thank you for the invite. Glad to be here and appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, been super fun hanging out, and looking forward to seeing OnSight pros transform the industry. I think our vision's aligned right there. So
awesome.
All
Good
right.
deal. Thanks for the time.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.